Welcome, everyone, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I am joined this week by a very, very special guest, Eddie Green, the National Director of Sales and Training for Aldry. Eddie, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, man, the honor's all mine. Like I said, I've seen you guys and been listening to the stuff that you're doing, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I feel blessed to be able to be a part of it.
We're blessed to have you on the podcast. Eddie is a mover and a shaker. He is currently recording and graciously recording from a hotel room in San Antonio, Texas, not his home base, but has agreed to come on the show this week. And we're super excited to have him to talk all things restoration, growing businesses, and sales and everything in between. So just really excited to have you on. And I know there's going to be some cool things that our listeners are going to get out of this show. So, Eddie, if you don't mind, maybe kind of first and foremost, just to familiarize yourself with our audience and maybe talk a little bit about who you are and how you got into the restoration space and how you got into your partnership into working with Aldry.
Absolutely. So, it's kind of a funny story. I stumbled into restoration by mistake. I had been in sales for years, for about 20 years. And it was all transactional based selling where, of course, restoration sales is relationally based. So, trying to overcome that obstacle really for the first 60 days that I was in, I cut my teeth working for ServPro, was hired kind of as a guinea pig to be a commercial specialist on the franchise level about 13 years ago. Okay. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, of all places, so a town of about 500,000 people. And the first 60 days, honest to God, would go home every day and tell my wife I made a huge mistake. And I said, I felt like a vulture. I'm like, I need something bad to happen to somebody so that I can make money. Right, I need their house to flood or their business to catch fire. And it just didn't really line up with my moral compass of who I was. I'm all about the customer and giving them the best experience possible. Well, my first loss was on a big historic church. It was a 6-figure loss that required a 3,000 CFM desiccant. So was hired to do that commercial side. And that's exactly what happened. I was very lucky, happened within my first 60 days. But it was what the facility manager said to me when she came down the stairs. She was crying, and they had never had a loss since their building and since their original inception in 1929. And she said, "Thank God my superhero is here." And I had a complete paradigm shift. Yeah. And I was like, that's it. That's why I'm here. It's bad things are going to happen regardless. And I get to wake up. I don't have to wake up. I get to wake up every day and put people's lives back together when they can't. And it just made me an unstoppable force. And I went on to become, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a multi-million-dollar producer every year, was speaking at convention, mentoring franchises, was blessed to sell the largest loss in Hurricane Harvey for ServPro as a corporation. And lo and behold, about 5 years in, I really had felt like, because I was helping, not that I needed to, we had it was a top 15 ServPro. So I didn't need to work the losses, but I worked every loss that I ever had, because how am I going to sell something I've never done? How am I going to sell something? How can I really be involved with the customer if I don't know what I'm looking at, how to articulate it? So I fell in love with this industry and wanted to be a true student of the game. But after about 5 years, I said I would rather teach than do. And because, I have this big out care, out educate philosophy when it comes to restoration. It is, I am the only problem that matters is the one that I'm standing in front of, and I'm going to out care my competition. And because of that, I was selling. By my 2017 year, I had outsold 1,700 of ServPro's franchises on my own. Wow. And it was just, nobody knew how I was doing it. And it literally wasn't a process. It wasn't this big sales component. It was finding creative ways to take care of the customer and not tell them no. Yeah. And it was really going way above and beyond for people. And I said, well, you know what? I think the restoration world needs this. So the next 5 years, I became an international consultant, and I consulted in Australia, the US, Canada, and Mexico, and built out multi-million-dollar sales professionals. And then lo and behold, April of last year, I got approached by Aldry. I'd never heard of them. And Matt Kuntz, who's the owner, said 2 words to me that made me want to be a part of this team. And he said, we want to be market disruptors. And he didn't mean that in a bad way. He meant that we want to go through and do things so 180 different in the world that we are going to genuinely be that consultative, solutions-based, servant's heart company. He said, that's what we mean by market disruption. He goes, do you want to head up our sales and training program? And I said, sign me up. And we have grown to 141 locations in 39 states. We're the number 42 fastest growing franchise in all of America by Entrepreneur Magazine, and the fastest growing restoration franchise. And we've grown just exponentially. We're not flying under the radar anymore. People know who we are. And it's all just been because of the buy-in that we get from those franchisees to go out and to just be that white glove concierge service. We have no desire to be the biggest. I've worked for the biggest.
Yeah.
And I've consulted with the biggest. I have no desire to do that. Our whole goal is to be the most respected and requested name in restoration. That's it. And if that makes us the biggest by proxy, fantastic. But we will do anything short of, just anything we can do to make sure that at the end of the day, the customer understands we gave you our very best.
Yeah. I love, oh gosh, there's so much good there, Eddie. I love the idea. I think a lot of restoration contractors miss out on opportunities. I just spoke with one of my clients today, and he talked about, and he's not part of a franchise. He's an independent owner, but he talked about something similar to what you just mentioned, of the idea of being a white glove A to Z type restoration contractor, where we might not be able to complete all of the tasks A to Z, but we're going to help you through that entire process. We're going to coordinate with contractors, and we're going to find people that can install carpet. And we're going to, if we can't do it, we're going to find someone and take care of you. He was like, I want my customers to make one phone call, and that's to me. And then they don't have to work, like the rest of the project is going to get completed after that. They make one phone call and it's taken care of and done. We work with adjusters. We do all that. So the concept of a white glove, A to Z type individual, A to Z type restoration contractor, I think is not lost in the industry, but I think it's something that I think a lot of people don't do. And I think they should, because it can make all the difference in your customers' lives. If you say, hey, you call us, we're going to handle it. We can get you taken care of.
No, I totally agree with you. I think that, and that's really how I stemmed, getting the notoriety nationwide that I did. Here's a, director of business development in a town of 500,000 people that become nationally recognized, on a stage speaking at convention every year. Franchise guys weren't doing that.
Right.
The big ERT guys were. And all the questions, of course, from the franchisees were coming to me because I'm walking in their shoes every day. And they're like, how are you doing this? And I said, I just under promise and overperform for my customers. I said, they have choices in life. You've got 100 restoration contractors in every city, and I said, and they have choices. So when they choose you, good, bad, or indifferent, you owe them your entire livelihood, because without them, you're nothing.
Yep.
So if you choose me, I am not going to let you down. I am going to go find the resources. I'm going to listen to your pain points, because, we can be very frank and honest. This industry is not very trusted. We're known for doing too much demo, for pushing people out of the way, placing too much equipment, overcharging. Somebody's got to step up to the plate and be the white hat. Somebody's got to be the good guy. And I chose for that to be me. And I know there's others out there like me. I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I don't see it a lot. And I hear them complain about customers. And I'm like, you realize without them, you don't have a job.
Yeah.
It's like you realize every problem matters. Everybody wants the big loss. I've sold my fair share of multi-million-dollar losses. It is a huge adrenaline rush. But I tell you what, the ones that are the most memorable to me are where the clients cried on my shoulder, the ones where I walked away, and I'll get emotional about it and feel like I made a difference in their life.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that stand out.
Oh, I love that. Eddie, you hit at something a little earlier, and I want to kind of dive in and dissect that a little bit further, because I think it's a huge part of sales in general. Granted, my background and your background are specifically what we talk about day to day is the restoration industry, but I think any service-based industry can relate to this. But it was the concept that you mentioned of you didn't necessarily have a sales process, but you cared about people and you cared about what they were going through. And maybe, if you wouldn't mind, take some time and talk a little bit about how you developed that. Was that something that do you just come by it naturally, or was it something you had to develop over the years as you dove into your job? How did you find that the process didn't really matter as long as you cared about the people?
Well, it was funny. I used to sell big C-band satellites, so it looked like you had NASA in your yard, with the big actuators
okay.
and all this. Well, I did that going through college. And I'll never forget, we were expanding out nationally, and I hired two very polished business and sales students from the University of Oklahoma. And these guys came in with the Zig Ziglar method and the motivational speaking method, but everything was a process. Everything was, which I don't care, even though I say sales is not a process, you do have to take the customer down a path, so there is some sort of a process that you take them down. But I think where people miss the boat is they do blanket things, like the traditional way that I see in restoration is people just show up and throw up, and I call that, there's no better evidence of that than you walk into an insurance agent's office and you see what I call the spoils of war. They're writing on a Paul Davis calendar with a Serve Pro pen on a Service Master notepad. They got 5 jars of candy from the local competitors and 20 magnets on their file cabinet. And they think that by showing up and saying, we're the biggest, we're the best, we're the fastest, we're this, we're that, and then you hand them a trinket, that's going to generate business. And the customer does not care about any of that.
No,
they want to know, how can you help me? And there's that 180-degree shift that you have to do. And it becomes, and so you'll see people show up. Well, here's my blanket presentation for insurance agents. Here's my blanket presentation for property managers, for adjusters, when every person is uniquely different, with uniquely different needs, pain points. I don't care if it's State Farm to State Farm. They're going to run their business inherently differently. So I stumbled into it. Honestly, I would love to tell you it was by brilliance. It was just by mistake. That first loss that I had, I did not know enough about the industry to really be able to articulate the science of what was going to happen. I mean, it was a big catastrophic loss, 5 floors. And I barely at this point knew the difference between an air mover and a DU, so out of ignorance, I simply said, we're masters of all this. You made the right call. But what's important to you throughout this process? What do we need to do for you? And I did it out of panic because I did not know I was waiting on my production manager to get on site. I'm just stalling.
Right.
And to see the look and the countenance on that client's face turn to, you really care about me? It was like it created an inferno inside me to sit there and say, whenever I go talk to a hotelier, I'm not going to talk to that hotel the same way I talk to the one down the street. Because they're people. People don't want to be sold anymore. People just want to deal with people. Yeah. And so I became all about, talk to me about what you need. What would it look like for us to have a relationship together? I know you've worked with other restoration companies. Tell me what you didn't like on the last loss. What would you have changed about the way the other company did it? And I embodied those things and said, I will not repeat those mistakes with you. And that's really where it's been. And I go out and I'm in the field. My job now is to train the salespeople in the field, and they don't understand why nobody tells me no. And I said, because I care so much about the outcome that they're going to receive. It would be ridiculous for them to tell me no. Yeah. And that's just the way I present it. It's just so real and so relevant to them that you're stupid not to work with me.
Yeah.
I
Oh, it's
dare
so good.
anybody to care as much as I will.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
dare you to go find them.
Oh, that's amazing. That leads me to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about was, um, you've now, been both consulting as well as now obviously you work with All Dry, and like you said, you go and help sales individuals at different restoration franchises. But how do you teach someone to do that? That maybe it doesn't come naturally, right? I think you know, Eddie, you and I might be kindred spirits in that way. That I too, I just care about people. I talk
Mm-hmm.
to people every single day about their marketing, so it's a little bit different. But I care about their business. I care about, they want to grow their business and sell it to their kid, or they want to grow their business so that they can take a nice vacation every once in a while, right? Like, so I care about them and want to help them grow their business. But I feel like not everyone is maybe like me and you. So how do you go about training sales individuals to care that same way? What are some things that you've had to do to help train them to do that?
Well, I think that, and that's a great question because, as a consultant, teacher, trainer, developer, our whole job in leadership is to motivate, empower, develop, and inspire. I mean, that's what a true leader should be doing. It's not a rule, trial by fear, do it my way. I wrote the curriculum for All Dry's training program. It's called Refining the Art of Restoration Sales Through the Power of Relationship. And it is genuinely a step-by-step deal. But our biggest fear is always failure to implement. Because I can go buy you the greatest bass boat and truck in the world and outfit it with everything that you could possibly need to go catch a fish. But if that thing never leaves the garage, it's not going to do you any good.
Nope, not going to work.
So what I have to sometimes have very real conversations with people if this is not your person, with the owners. You've got a warm body in place that's not going to execute. I try to make sure that I limit that, because I think in leadership, you have to first, if somebody's failing, the first person you look at is leadership. Did they provide them with all the tools that they need to be successful? If they didn't, are they motivating, developing, inspiring, and empowering? If they're not doing those things, then of course the person's failing. This is not an industry that you can throw somebody to the wolves. But whenever I get down to the nitty gritty with the marketer, salesperson, customer relations manager, business development, whatever you want to call it, it is, tell me your why. Simon Sinek said it best: start with the why. Tell me why restoration. This is not a glamorous industry. This is sucking raw sewage at 2:00 in the morning is not glamorous.
Not
It
at
is,
all.
tell me why you're here. And I want to hear things like, because I want to help people, because I want to serve, because I want to be somebody's superhero. If I hear because I want to make a whole lot of money and they're money motivated, then I need to give them the tools to show them how to be successful, to be money motivated. But it all comes back down to the same way that I cater to the customer. I cannot use a blanket training method no more than I can use a blanket sales pitch. The training is based on the individual skill set and the tools that I'm dealing with, and how do I get iron to sharpen iron with that individual? What motivates that individual? Sometimes it doesn't work, but we are having a very high success rate, with our marketers, because we are so personal. 141 franchises all have my cell phone. They know if they text me at any given time. Even right now, I'm putting this podcast on hold because they need me.
Right.
And it's so we're putting infrastructure and support in place to the point to where that if anybody fails, it's because they chose to. So we're never going to look ourselves in the mirror and say they're failing because we didn't give them the tools. So they go through lots of training. I do bi-weekly regional marketing trainings every 2 weeks for them, to where they're getting fed with actionable measures of how to go be successful in the marketplace. I provided them with one sheets on for every vertical that they would market to. Here's the keys to success. Here's the pain points of our industry with this specific vertical. Here are 5 to 7 talk points or discovery questions that you can use to open dialogue. So we're really doing everything we can to put so much support out there that, again, if they fail, it's because they choose to. I don't believe anybody ever rolls out of bed and their feet hit the floor and say, you know what? I'm going to be a failure today. I don't think anybody does that, but when you're in this industry and you can't speak the lingo and you're standing in front of a client and you just go blank, I don't want that to happen to our people. I want them armed to the teeth to be able to handle problems. And if they can't, we're just a phone call away. Our leadership team is all about support. So, but we do have the occasional conversation of, this is not your person. This is not your industry, because it does take a very special person to be successful in this industry.
Yeah. I love the concept of finding your why, right? Like, well, why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why are you rolling into work? Like what motivates you? And I think answering that question solves all the other problems.
Sure.
Right. Like, I mean, like you said, you can offer all this support and this technical knowledge and helping them understand the difference between a DHU and an air mover, right? Like, you can offer all this technical know-how and skill, but if they don't know their why, it's never going to work out. Right. And I think that's probably
my first question to these people is always, how bad do you want this?
Yeah.
Tell me what you're willing to do to make this success happen, because as well as I do, the earning potential, there is no ceiling, in this industry, especially if you've got a good owner who sees, the margins and what good salespeople are worth. I've never wanted for anything since I've been a restoration sales professional. It's, if I wanted a raise, I could just go sell more, and it was, so I was a hard charger, never take my foot off the gas. I was, one of those people. It's like, I need, because I felt like that I provided the best service that anybody could get. So if you weren't working with me, you were doing yourself or your company or your industry a disservice, by not working with me. And that was my mantra. It was like, if you don't work with me, you're failing your company, and it was because I'm going to take care of you better than anybody will. And and I think probably the long coming all the way back, you have to find people with passion. Passion will trump skill set every day of the week. And if you do not find somebody who is passionate about taking care of people, they're just going to go through the motions and they're going to forever be mediocre. I mean, that's the best they'll ever achieve. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. There's so much, there's so many good pieces to all of that. And, I think at times we get caught up in for lack of a better explanation, I love sports, but we get caught up in the X's and O's behind it all, right? Like, oh, somebody asked me this question, I need to say this thing. Or if I'm talking to this particular, like you mentioned before, it's like, oh, if I'm talking to a hotel manager or if I'm talking to a property manager or an insurance agent, this is my list, right? These are the things I've got to make sure I say to this person. I think we can get caught up in those things and just breaking it down even further to, okay, what's your why? What motivates you? Talk to these people and care about who they are and use your why to almost let your why speak through you to these people. And at the end of the day, you're going to be successful if you let that happen. So I think that's
where I think that the biggest problem that I see people is we've become a society that is programmed to speak to respond.
Yeah.
We've already got a preloaded, we've already got something in the chamber. We've already, we're preloaded. You hear something and I'm going to fire something off. Yep. And I see this disconnect even in marriages. One of the biggest things that helped me in my marriage was to stop, to take a deep breath, because men and women communicate very differently, and just use a qualifying statement with my wife of, if I'm understanding what you're saying, what I think you meant was this. Just that simple statement has saved so many arguments. But if we would just stop and actively listen to what our clients have to say, to good, bad, or indifferent, and ask for more and use that 30-70 rule. I'm going to talk 30% of the time to let them talk 70% of the time. They'll sell themselves.
Yeah.
Because they'll paint themselves into that corner, not in a bad way. I just mean figuratively. And, they'll give you all the ammunition that you need to show how you can position yourself to be a quality relationship for that person. And I think that if we would just get out of our own way and start understanding that instead of being so focused on making the sale, just make it about, I'm going to go spend time with these people because I want to spend time with people.
Yeah.
And then let the rest of it come. There, don't get me wrong. There's got to be a point to where you've got to ask for the business, or they're not going to give it to you. But it could arc close because we can't sell something that hasn't happened yet, unless you're talking about ancillary services, deodorization, disinfection, general cleaning, things like that. But if it's a non-transactional base, you're waiting for the big ticket item to happen, then you just really need to say, you know what, I'm going to be here. Here's my cell phone. Just give me a shot to prove that everything I'm showing you isn't a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And the best part is that if at the end of the day, if I didn't live up to your expectations, you don't ever call me back. And I can't be in that business. I have to be in the business of treating your job like it's the only one I'm ever going to get.
Yep.
And if we will not lose sight of that as restoration professionals, that everything matters. Every customer matters. And because we don't know who they know. You can be in some little old lady's house that's got 10 square feet of hardwood flooring from a dishwasher leak, and she may know the governor of the state.
Yeah.
We have to treat everybody like their problem is a catastrophe, because it is to them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sorry. Great. I didn't mean to bogart that.
No, Eddie, you've talked about so many good pieces there. And I think they're important to the restoration industry, but I think they're important, like I mentioned earlier, to anybody in the home services industry. I have clients that, own carpet cleaning companies and HVAC companies. And I think there are pieces of this that can affect change in anywhere in the home services industry. If you're selling a service to someone that, you're going to go into their home and fix something or make something better, I think these are crucial pieces that you have to understand. Do you feel, Eddie, are there some specific things that you feel restoration owners, because that's obviously your experience and your expertise, but are there some things that you feel like are maybe barriers to growth that restoration owners at some point have to overcome? You obviously are steeped in sales, and sales is a big part of that, right? They've got to figure out how to sell themselves and their business. But is there anything else that you've seen that are barriers to growth that you feel like restoration owners have got to figure out, how do I overcome this to grow my business?
Yeah, I think that just the general understanding of how to run a business, I think that a lot of people get into this industry because they see the margins. And they say, hey, I'm going to slap a sticker on a truck and be a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
And they don't take the time to learn how to be a business owner. They don't take the time to learn how to even create a mission, vision, and core value proposition for their organization, so that they have the standards and a culture to have their employees adhere to. I can sell wood to a beaver, but it doesn't mean that I'm a good salesperson for you.
Right.
I might not fit your culture. I may be too strong-willed. I may have too much industry knowledge. And instead of utilizing me as business development, you should utilize me as a GM, but I think their lack of industry knowledge, lack of ability to run a business, lack of ability to manage and hold people accountable, and lack of the ability to be able to develop. It's like they don't know when to grow, when not to grow. They don't see that boots on the ground organic marketing should carry the weight of your overall revenue stream. They want to rely, in which, I've been on the digital marketing side, but we all know that the digital marketing component is a supplement to the income. It's not ever going to be your primary base.
Yep.
Yeah. I think the barriers are there, that, lack of involvement in the community. Maybe there's a lot of absentee ownership. This is not a business that lends itself to having very limited access. It's a business that requires an all-in mentality to get it off the ground, and then to keep it afloat. Once you start achieving success, everybody wants to take it away from you.
Yeah.
So in this industry, there is no rest. I mean, there's no rest for the wicked. It is a foot on the gas, constant grind mentality, and you have to love it. I mean, you have to love what you do, or it's just not going to work.
Yeah. There's so much there. I speaking to the digital marketing side of things, which is what I do every day, but you're 100%.
It's a necessary component.
Well, and I tell my clients all the time, I say, it is easy for me to do my job. It is easy for me to market an awesome company. But in order for you to be an awesome company, like you've got to be doing everything else, right? Like you can't, marketing is like digital marketing, especially does not solve all your worries. If you're not out beating the pavement and have great relationship marketing and you've built a name in your community that people know who you are and they care about the work that you're doing, like if those things aren't in place, like digital is only going to take you so far. And that I think
their lack of participation with digital marketing too. I mean, the lack of ability to provide unique content, that they don't see the importance of doing the short form videos or doing a mix of industry and non-industry related posts so that you can have success and reach a broader audience spectrum. How they need to monitor they're not using stock photos or using photos in their specific community so that people can, that they can say, hey, that's a landmark in our community. I mean, there's so much on the digital marketing side that they fail that they just want to hand it over to you and expect you to wave a magic wand. And, it takes an all-in, like I said, it takes an all-in mentality, to get it off the ground. Every component, digital marketing and PPC, very viable revenue drivers, but it takes time.
Yep.
You're not going to trick Google anymore. I mean, there's no smoke and mirrors there. It's on too much of a, the learning curve is up. I think last I heard is above a middle school learning level, so you're not playing smoke and mirrors with Google. It takes time and consistency to really get it off the ground, but they expect in the first 30 days to be top of the Google listing and on the map listings. And hey, I'm number one ranked. And I'm like, that doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So
you've 100% hit it.
They're necessary components. So
well, and you hit it so many good things there that are barriers. And I think you've got to be doing a little bit of everything. If you really want to grow as a restoration contractor, and even if your goals aren't necessarily to be a multi-zillionaire, right? Like you just want to grow and have a good, stable business for you and your employees, and you want to pay your employees well, and you want to take your wife on vacation or take your spouse or your loved ones on vacation every once in a while. Like you just want to build a good size, normal business. You've got to be able to do all those things. You've got to know how to manage people and market and sell your business and have good salespeople. And there's so many pieces to it all. But I think and it seemed like your all encompassing umbrella term was like, you got to be all in, right? Like more so than anything else. Mm-hmm. Like, and in any industry, I think that's fair to say for any small business owner, anybody in the home services world. I think you've got to be all in. You've got to buy into this system, and I think that's the most crucial piece of it.
Well, I think if you were going to give somebody 3 pillars for success in a restoration company, I think it would boil down to 3 individual components. It's going to be desire, consistency, and accountability. It is those that you have those 3 things in place, and you should be able to have a certain degree of success. And then once you taste that, you can always compound on that, you're always, I hope that when people come in, the one thing that I love about this industry is the spontaneity side of it. I've been doing this for 13 years and I've done, lots of major named CAT events, and all these kinds of things, but I see something different and learn something different every day. And I'm never going to be a subject matter expert, and I love that because it stretches me constantly to be better. So if they're not coming into this to be a true student of the game, there's going to be your first major barrier, because again, if you can't articulate the science of what we do to a facility manager who's been doing it 25 years, he's going to call Belfort, or he's going to call Paul Davis, or he's going to call Cottons, or he's going to call Blackman Mooring or Abbott's or whoever, ATI. So it's, they're going to call the people that have been in this industry 50 years, and the little guys wondering, well, why did I just lose that market share? Yep. It's like, well, you didn't put anything into it at all. It's like that sticker on your van didn't help you one bit.
Yep. I love it. Eddie, but I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask, kind of one final piece to this, but, going forward for growth in 2023, what are you looking to do? And maybe this is more specific to All Dry. but I think, again, I think it relates to anybody in our audience that's trying to grow and expand in 2023. But what does the future look like for All Dry in 2023? What are you hoping to accomplish this year? And what is, as National Director of Sales and Training, I'm sure you're going to be pretty integral in that piece for All Dry. But what is All Dry looking to do, and what are your hopes for 2023?
Great question. I think that's a multifaceted answer. I think the big thing is just to become more consistent, more relevant in the market space. We want to, again, be that most respected and requested brand in all of restoration. We're only going to do that by increasing customer awareness of the quality of service that we bring to the table. So it's going to be a lot of continued training and development, implementation of infrastructure, creating deeper relationships with vendors, like people that are supplying, like our supplemental power equipment rental, temp labor, all the things that we need to do to be able to grow, and just continue to provide our franchisees with the level of support that they need to support their success. I take it very personally when a franchise is failing. I have 141 right now. I think we'll probably be over 200 by the end of the year. I would guess maybe even closer to 250. We're part of my implementation is to put 7 regional directors in place because I can't be everywhere at once. Right. I spend about 90% of my time on the road right now. I leave here, go to Jacksonville, go to Dallas. It's just never ending. So to put those regionals in place to where there can be 8 of me is my personal goal, but I think that ultimately, we can't ever take anything that we're doing for granted. We have to treat our franchisees just like they're our clients. We have to care about each and every one of their individual needs and their unique skill sets, and what can we do to bolster that and enhance that to only make us better, to where our reputation it's just unparalleled. So like I said, if we do for some reason become that juggernaut, like a ServPro, ServiceMaster, Paul Davis, the big 3, so be it. But that's not our goal. Our goal is when anybody mentions All Dry to go, wow, that company, good God, they do fantastic work. They really take care of their people. And I personally just want to send chills down the spine of any other restoration provider going that we can't compete with that level of service. We just can't.
Oh, I love it.
So, that's my goal.
That's so cool. Those are some, I think those are some very reasonable and very reachable goals for you. And Eddie, again, just the little bit of time that we've got to spend together and, for me to learn a little bit more about you. I've been fascinated with who you are. And I think you've got some really cool goals, and I'm excited to see what you guys do in 2023. And I think, those goals are totally doable with the type of person that you are. I think they've got the right guy heading up their sales team, their national director of sales. I think All Dry is really set to do some cool things this year, and I'm excited to maybe be a fly on the wall for that. So that'll be fun.
Well, we're excited too, and our leadership team is really fantastic. Jason, Bill, Camilo, Lupe, Cecily, Matt, Gina, Devin, there are our leadership team that we have at HQ is really embodies all the same passion, moral compass, quality of service that I do. I'm very blessed to be surrounded by forward thinking individuals, that are willing to do this at a very high level of service. So I couldn't do what I do without them. I'm just one part of the cog on the wheel, but I love that I get to go out and do things like this and be the face of All Dry, and hopefully, somewhere here in the near future, I'll be up in your neck of the woods. We'll go grab some dinner and we'll talk more.
Heck yeah. I would love that. I would love, I don't know if, I'm located Southeast Idaho in Southeast Idaho, a little town called Blackfoot, but, I think what you guys are trying to do there, I think is really, really cool. And, I'm excited to see it happen. So it's very, very fun for me.
Awesome. Well, thank Eddie, you so much for having me, man. So I
Yeah,
appreciate it. It's been a
this has been
blast.
super fun. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I would like to close
No,
with
you can keep me as long as you need.
with the same three questions that I ask all of our guests. It's the same three that we ask everybody. And I think it's been cool for me to learn a little bit, especially rapid fire, if you will, at the end of every episode. But first and foremost, is there a book or podcast that you're reading or listening to right now that you really enjoy, that you're passionate about?
Yeah, the book that I'm not going to say I'm reading it right now because I try to read, about 3 to 5 good sales books, leadership books a year. But the book that was life changing for me, I got to give a shameless plug to Jeb Blunt. Anything that Jeb Blunt has ever put out, Sales EQ, Fanatical Prospecting, that stuff. But the biggest life changing book that I ever read that I felt like was, and I champion this to every marketer that is in our industry, is Go Givers Sell More by Bob Berg. That book was, for me, felt like it was written for our industry, but it wasn't, but I took more away from that single book about what it is to sell with a servant's heart and to really get in the business of taking care of people from that book than any other book I have ever read. So Go Givers Sell More, Bob Berg. So podcasts, I've got several of them. I love Andy Frisella. I'm a big Real AF. I love
Yeah,
his stuff.
Andy's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's great.
He makes me want to run through a brick wall. So,
yeah, seriously.
And then
His stuff's really
Sales
good.
Gravy by Jeb Blunt is another one. So,
oh, that's so cool. That book, I talk about this with the last couple guests that I've had on, but that's a recommendation we haven't had yet. So we get a lot of repeat recommendations, but that sounds like a great book that I'm going to need to check out a little bit. So thank you for that. Second question, Eddie. I know you wear a lot of hats and you're traveling all over the place. Like you said, you're doing a lot of different things. If you could, I'm sure you get time, but it's probably not very often. When you do get time to relax and recharge, what do you do?
Take my wife on a cruise.
That's a great option. That's a great option.
In 12 months. In May, it's going to be our 25th wedding anniversary. So we're getting remarried, redoing our vows in May. Or I'm in Colorado. I'm very blessed to have had 2 sons in the industry. One just stepped out. One's a director of operations. He's in Colorado Springs, so I go up to see my grandbaby all the time. But I'm a big family guy, so anything I can do with family is always what I'm doing in my off time.
Oh, that's cool. Well, and I want to add, because I thought it was so cool. You mentioned it before we started recording, but you also play a little bit of music. Sounds like, Eddie, you'd make a little bit of music, right?
Yeah, I'm very blessed to play with some guys that had a pretty big career in the 90s. It was a band called Fear Not. And the lead singer couldn't do it anymore. And I was coming fresh off of being signed to Warner Brothers, a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Records, with a hardcore metal band. And I had kind of gotten out of music. I've been playing music since I was 16. And I'd gotten off that label and they just approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to be our new lead singer?" And this album called Fields of Sorrow has had a ton of critical acclaim. We've had several charted singles, but got the #3 mention for Album of the Year from HM Magazine and the Song of the Year. So next show is Easter weekend in Mexico City.
Oh, that's so cool. You're the first rock star I've had on this podcast, I must say, Eddie. So that's pretty cool.
No, if I was a rock star, you would have known it before you asked. Hey, are you John Bon Jovi?
Hey, yeah, you what's Rolling Stones? What? No, anyways.
Yeah,
exactly. That's pretty cool, Eddie. That's awesome. Final question. Before, again, I don't want to harass you too much longer, but last question. If you could rewind to the beginning of your career, whether it's the beginning of your career in restoration or just, beginning of your career in sales, what would be one thing that you would tell your younger self?
Relationships are more important than success because it feeds the machine. Be more focused on the individual than you are on the success. Because, whether you believe in karma, whether you believe in pay it forward, whether you believe in whatever, it is the relationship side. Spend more time with people because you love spending time with people and let the rest of it work itself out. I was so money motivated at the first part of my career that I lost sight of everything that was important,
Yeah.
which was building those strong foundational relationships. And I had to go back and pick those pieces up and kind of start all over with that. Was I successful? I was successful, but at what cost?
Right.
It is your success is always just one relationship away. So be in the moment, take care of the people in front of you, genuinely love what you do, and the rest will work itself out.
Oh, it's great advice. Thanks, Eddie. That was really, really good advice there at the end. This has been awesome. This has been super cool to sit down and chat with you a little bit, Eddie, today. And I think you've provided some really, really awesome information for our clients and for the people that are checking out this podcast. For whatever small audience we might have, I know they're going to get a lot of really cool value out of this. And I just want to say thanks. This has been really fun for me. And I hope to have you on again in the future. We can talk a little bit more, maybe talk music or something else. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to send you the album.
Okay.
So I'll make sure and send you an album. I'll get your shirt size. I'll send you the t-shirt.
Oh, I love that.
So, but other than that, like I said, it's, I do believe, I'm still trying to remember. I think we do actually have a franchise in Boise.
Oh, cool.
So if it ends up being the case whenever I'm up there, regardless of how far it is up the road, at least it's not as far away from Tulsa to Idaho. We'll see if we can hook up and get together. But anything I can ever do to help you in your cause, please let me know. I totally believe that in colleagues and not competitors, and that iron sharpens iron. So,
amen, brother. Thank you again for coming on, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business, please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.